Welcome back to the Vault Unlocked. Most businesses don't have a lead problem. They don't even have a traffic problem. They have a system problem. And today, we're talking about one of the most overlooked and most expensive places where problems show up: trade shows. Companies are spending $50,000, $100,000, sometimes even more to show up, set up a booth, and hope it turns into a pipeline. But there's no structure, no engagement strategy, no real conversion system behind it. So what happens? They burn money and call it brand awareness. Today's guest is Anders Boulanger, someone who spent years inside the trenches of trade shows, not just watching them, but engineering them. He's built a completely different approach, one that turns passive booths into high converting experiences using psychology, engagement, and what he calls infotainment. We're breaking down what actually separates the booths that get ignored from the ones that generate real ROI. Let's unlock it.
So I have to ask, or at least put out the statement, because I've seen this too many times. Companies, say most companies, spend at least $50,000 to go to a trade show. And then they send their worst closers or their worst people there and hoping something comes from it. But today, Anders, you have a solution for this big problem. I want to hear all about it.
One solution, maybe not just one. We're going to have like a kind of a multi-pronged attack and look at that. I mean, 50 grand, and it depends on the industry. That could be super cheap. I've been in $1 million booths. I've been in, all kinds of, and then, it depends on the scale of the business that you have, right? And what kind of investment you want to make. But I think one of the things that we talk about, we talk about the trade show triangle, and it's like, there's different levels of exhibitors, and so many are in the bottom part of that triangle where they are what we call a booth buyer. They buy a booth, they show up, and they wait. And they buy into that myth: if you build it, they will come, which is from Field of Dreams. And if you believe that, you're dreaming that this is going to work for you, right? At a trade show. So understanding that engagement is so key, understanding that it's going to take some energy, some being proactive. There's a lot of things that you need to do to be able to make your investment worthwhile. And those who do crack that code are getting, the 3x, 4x ROI, from their trade show investment. And it's not an expense. It is an investment.
So let's take a step back here. I wanted to open up with that kind of, a statement there, but I do want to take a back step here and go ask the question, okay, well, who is Anders, and and what do you do?
I just went off on you. Yeah. You're like, all right, let's get into it. Yeah.
I love it. No, I love it. But like just for the audience listening, let's make sure we understand, who we're speaking to and how you even found, this niche in the niche. Yes.
Yeah. So a bit of background. When I was 5 years old, got a magic set for Christmas, became a magician, a kid magician, I guess, if you will. Paid my, did birthday parties, paid my way through university. I got a physics degree, went full time doing magic. And then at some point, around 2007, I got trained by my mentor, who taught me how to do trade shows in a new and different way. And so what I became was what we call an infotainer. So I take magic, but I tell a story with it that is a marketing message. And this builds a crowd of people. It excites people. It kind of creates a peak state for people. And then we do qualification and a call to action, and then lead a big crowd of people over to a demo. And we're creating, MQLs, SQLs, creating opportunities. And we just I found a higher and better use for that skill set. And so over the years, there's things that, I'd see time and time again play out. And I'm a bit of a human A/B test. Like, I'm always going, well, is this going to work better? Is this going to work better? And seeing what moves people, and then also where, exhibitors drop the ball, like where I'm doing my best, but you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, right? Like sometimes I'd bring him over to the demo station. I'm like, where the heck's my demo guy? We can't, so there were these things that I noticed and started making notes on it. We started building trainings around it. And so now I'm on the faculty for the Certified Trade Show Marketing designation. That's through Exhibitor Group and Exhibitor Magazine. And so it's just kind of all of this experience has kind of culminated into, the expertise that we have now.
So let's talk about trade shows as a whole, because I know I have my take on trade shows, and obviously you support and do great work at trade shows. But have you seen trade shows evolve? I would say over time, especially since we've got out of the 2020 era where trade shows came to a complete halt. Now people coming back in, and you can see they're starting to pop up. A lot more people are wanting to get back to them. How have they changed, I would say, in the last 10, 15 years to where they are today?
For sure. If we go back 15 years ago, there was still a lot more business card, fish bowls and that kind of like how the lead was acquired. I was watching a video of my mentor from years ago where you used to have to, they'd pass out pencils and a piece of paper and you had to fill in your information on a sheet. So they were like passing stuff out to the crowds. Like it was just wild. So now, of course, it's more scanning, as far as whether it's a QR code, whether it's the near field. But now what we're also seeing too is, this scanning is getting so smart and attaching even conversations, almost like the AI conversation recording. There's a company called Backtrack. So you and I, Kayvon, you could come into the booth and we could just chat and start talking about, what your pain points are, all of that kind of stuff. And I say, hey, can I scan your badge? And in that moment, I could scan your badge and go back in time 5 minutes with our conversation. And that conversation then attaches to the lead.
Wow.
So when you think about following up in terms of relevance, right? You get all the follow-up, and I guess this is a whole other point, but you want that follow-up to be relevant so people open it. The big dirty secret way back when, 15 years ago, was that 75 to 80% of leads are never followed up on. Now, I think things have changed because we are more data driven. I work with mostly tech companies, so they got their tech stack and their go to market. They got stuff figured out. And yet Swapcard, which is a company that makes these scanners and things like that, they're saying still that 70 to 75% of the leads are never downloaded. So because they can see the fact. So I have trouble believing that, but that's what their stats are saying. So it's just, so it's kind of like, I thought we were past that in terms of evolution. And yet too depends on which industry. So whatever industry you're in, just take that professionalism up and be those ones that are actually, using those leads and following up. So that was one side of, that evolution. And then the other side too is analytics. So it used to be that if you were the marketing person going to your CEO and they say like, okay, how was this show we invested in? And you say, well, it felt slower this year. It's hard to go to the boardroom to these C-level executives and talk about feelings, right? So nowadays there are different solutions that allow you to actually have analytics. So whether it is based off of cell phone signatures, so that you can actually heat map a booth and see where the hotspots were, how long people stayed, the impressions around the outside. We actually use a solution that it measures eyeballs. So it's AI, but it's ethical AI. There's no facial recognition, but there is facial analysis, and it just makes that into numbers. So it's counting how many people walk by, what's the stop rate, how many people stop and look at the booth for 15 seconds or more, how many people come in, how long do they stay, what's their gender, roughly, right? Like it's law of big numbers.
Wow.
Over 40, under 40 in terms of, that the age demographics. And then it can, there's a few, and energy. So meaning like really happy and excited would be like high 85, 90. They put a number to it. And like focused and serious would be like, 65 to 70 kind of thing. So sometimes you can see the difference between what's happening in the aisle and what's happening in your booth. And if it's by a demo station, typically people are getting more serious because they're watching, and if it's a cocktail hour, or you're giving away booze in your booth, well, maybe it's going to be the higher energy, right? So anyways, you can see all of this, and now we can start testing and seeing what are we doing? Is it working or is it not? And then really applying those learnings to the next show, right? And being
so it seems like from what when I said what's the difference, it's AI completely advanced. I mean, just the data that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's more data points too, but just the data there can tell you instantaneously, is it successful? Is it not successful? I mean, when you were talking about people's facial recognitions, and when people are coming to the booths, you'll be able to tell, does it even speak? Right? Like, does this booth itself aesthetically speak to the people? Are they being attracted before they even have a call or a talk with, the demo person or the quasi, let's call it the sales rep that's sitting at the trade show. Now, I know what you do is different, which I love. And that's why we're here, because I've never even heard of this. And I think it's awesome. And you, I want to call it, you're the hype man at trade shows, but the hype man that has a plan and that delivers results. So talk a little bit about like exactly how that works and how you see companies, in the sense of businesses that hire you versus don't at that same trade show. What are we seeing?
Yeah, for sure. So I think with trade shows, one of my frustrations with a lot of ways that other people look at it is they're like, if we can just get more people to the booth, right? Like it's just all about that, and that is an important piece, and we kind of talk about a 3-step model of we want to attract the people, give them a reason to stop, but we also want to connect with them, give them a reason to listen. And so often we're so caught up of the attracting thing that, we're giving away coffee. Like there's a barista giving away coffee in the booth and no one's even talking to anyone in that damn line. Like there has to be reasons to connect and talk and just, have meaningful interactions, right? Because at the end of the day, people are going to visit 14 booths or something like that on average. And are they even going to remember being at your booth? Right. And you can't buy what you don't remember. So that they attract, give them a reason to stop, the connect, give them a reason to listen, and then the convey, give them a reason to buy. And that's really where we're talking about, conveying the message and the sales message that we would think about having at a booth. So oftentimes people have gaps in that and we're not getting there, right? Sometimes it's a cry for attention. So what we do with our infotainment presentations is we bring all of that into one piece. And so we're kind of like a turnkey experience that we can even work in a 10 by 10 booth. So, where sometimes you think, I can't have an experience, I don't have enough space. Well, we come in and we start off by just entertaining to spike dopamine, right? People see that there's kind of a payoff. They want to be a part of something. So that's where that magic and the entertainment demonstrations that we have. And then once we win them over, we start then integrating in the messaging. And so what happens is they are now learning at the same time as they're being entertained, hence the term infotainment. And every time we do a new demonstration, we're taking people from point A to point B, and there's an aha moment in the middle. And that aha moment is usually where there's something amazing happening in the magic effect, but it's also where we introduce the solution of the company we're talking about. So what's happening is they're actually inductively learning, meaning, they're putting it together in their heads. They're going, and they're also seeing the connection with what we're doing. And that's what creates this, peak experience that people can have. And meanwhile, we're kind of cheerleading them on a little bit. We're conducting the energy. And oftentimes I have people yelling out the company name. And this happened yesterday that someone introduced me to someone else on LinkedIn and they said, Anders was at the eFax booth. And this was the booth I was working at last week in LA. And she said, I remember that because he made us remember that. We were yelling that name out loud in the booth. And so these are those little like psychological, kind of, crowd dynamics kind of stuff that we really engineer engagement in the booth. And that's where we can kind of plug in and take something that is very stagnant, very passive, people just waiting, and make it an event happening in the booth that people want to be a part of. And then we do the qualification. We'll ask some questions. Who's gonna blah, 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 blah. We work with the company, whatever that is, we see the hand raising. And then we take those people and we bring them over to a demo. And then we kind of just put them right in your lap, right?
I love it. Layups already pre-framed.
Yeah.
Psychological warfare, I'd like to say, but I know it's not, but it's using psychology, which I love, which is, why I got into marketing and what I love about marketing. I'd love to go deeper into some of that psychology, if you don't mind, of like, even where did you identify that, holy moly, like, because what I'm looking at when I see this is like, there's the booth with the business who already has its people there, like the sales, the trade people there.
Their booth staff. Yeah.
The booth staff. Thank you. And then you are kind of sitting on top of that to really set the booth staff up for success.
Yeah.
To me, I'm like when I think about it, like now I even know what exists. How do you even compete? Why would I even go? Like, why would I go to a trade show and not have someone like you? I'm not selling for you. I just doesn't.
No.
Brain goes to it doesn't make sense. I go, okay, like if there's 20 people at a trade show, one of them is using psychological warfare to get more people to my booth already indirectly or directly pre-framed. So now they've already raised their hand in a way of knowing I'm interested in what this is. So my guys are not at my booth as a business owner. They're not wasting time talking to the people who shouldn't even be at the booth. And they're pre-framed. We call those home runs where I come from.
It does like cut to the chase. And so there's a few things happening there. One thing too is the optics of a busy booth, right? When you have a crowd around a booth, they're like, what's going on there, right? They're a going concern. They have what we call creating a magnetic presence.
Okay, I love this. Is the stuff I want to talk about. Magnetic presence. Okay.
And so when I'm building a crowd, I don't care who the heck you are. You're not I will take a security guard if I need to, right? Like I always say, I'm badge agnostic. Come, everyone can watch. We're all good. Let's make something happen. So I'm trying to build up that gravitational pull because we need to get past that critical mass, right? Like if I'm talking to three people, that's almost not quite a crowd yet. It's like three's company, four's a crowd. Then I get four people, and now it starts having a little bit more of a pull, right? And so if we really break down what's going on, and I'll just slow down because you want to get into the psychology of this.
I love to. Yeah,
is I gamify the presentation, so I give someone a chance to win $2,000.
Wow!
And so I fan out a fan of cash, $40, $50 bills. I throw them down on the floor. And then I do a magic demonstration on the floor. So I'm kneeling on the floor by all this cash, and I might have one or two people watching me right now. So there's not a lot happening, but I'm on a microphone and I'm swinging for the fences, meaning I'm not playing small and not being on a microphone. I'm doing a show. Like this is a performance, and they can tell by the way that I talk about it that this is going to happen. It's not like, if we get enough people, we're going to do a little show here. Like that's not how it is.
I was
right?
thinking that we got like busker style.
Yeah, there is that. There's this street performance for corporate. It's corporate street performing. I often say. So then people watch me do it, and what happens is basically I'm using a shadow on a deck of cards, cuts itself. It's like it's impressive, and that's what I open with, but then I say that's the warm up. And everyone's like, where's he going? Like, okay. Right. Yeah. So now a few more people are standing around. So maybe we have 5 or 6 people. They're standing shoulder to shoulder. I do a thing where I take a marker and I draw an X, a Sharpie on my hand, and we do a fist bump, and everyone fist bumps all the way around. And I'm like, we're going to create some connection. And this literally does create connection in the way that all these strangers now have touched each other. But what I want them to do is I want to congeal the artery. I want to bond them together in a sense that I don't want them to leave. I want to bond them to me too, right? Yeah. So we're a group. So what ends up happening, the last person who had already put their hand behind their back brings their hand out, does a fist bump, opens their hand. They have the X. The X has gone off my hand. And they're like, whoa, right? So this is all just magic at this point. This is all just entertainment, dopamine spiking, right? And there's a little bit of like, what is going on? How did this, like, where am I? I'm at this booth and now all these things are happening. Then I get up on my stage, and when I get on the stage, I get on page, meaning I bring in the scripting, what we've planned to talk about. So we built rapport on the floor, and now we get on stage and get on page. So now I usually say a little something to kind of get people to be in on it, right? And I'll say, notice this is not your normal presentation. It's not a lot of PowerPoint here, right? This is not a presentation. It's an experience. And we're going to co-create this experience, meaning it's not me doing it for you, but it's us doing it for each other. Do you want to have a good time? Say, yeah. And everyone goes, yeah. Like now they're like, yeah, let's do this, right? And I go, take a step in. and then they come a little bit closer. And so I always want to keep them nice and close. The closer they are, the less chance they're going to leave. It's also everything's more impressive, and they're shoulder to shoulder with people, so they're feeling their energy. And so we're really, architecting how they experience
manufacturing.
It. Yeah. So that's kind of how and then I get into the different routines, but we're just building out the crowd now, and more people are stopping. Typically, the more I touch someone or interact with someone, the more interesting that is. And then at the end of the presentation, I'm going to give someone a chance to win $2,000. At that point, when I say, okay, we're going to give someone a chance to win $2,000, nobody's moving a muscle now, right? Everyone's listening. And then I can pretty much say or do whatever I want in that little, minute or 2 minute before their patience is up, right?
Yeah.
But that's where throughout the presentation, I've said, who wants to win 2K? Raise your hand. And people raise their hand. How many people are having this problem? Is this true? Raise your, and people are nodding their heads, and I'm gauging their level of either frustration or the fact that they are right fit people throughout the presentation. And so at the end, I can ask these more direct qualifying questions, and people are already trained to raise their hand. So they will out themselves at that point, right? Whether or not that's the case. And then I make a case to go check out a demo. Now, whether we've incentivized it by a special gift that we're giving away, maybe it's just kind of like, I sometimes say, we're going to do a 3-minute save session. In 3 minutes time, we're going to show you how to save time, save money, and save your sanity. You've already spent 15 with me. What's another 3, right? So see Suzanne over there. She's going to talk to you guys. I'll bring you
And
over.
Suzanne's just smiling and ready.
Yeah,
she's
like, bring them on.
She's
right?
a bright star.
Yeah. So that's kind of, and then I say that the loudest person who yells the company's name, if you need a cue card, it's right behind me. On the count of 3 is going to get picked to have a chance to win my cash. And then I play a game with them that the odds are stacked in their favor, and yet I basically do it for a living. So I'm good at it. And
the question is, do they get the cash?
The odd time they do, I am very good at the game. So I try to keep my cash. And if the company wants me to give away some cash, I will give away some cash and intentionally lose. So there's some, and if we wanted to, we could do it for less cash and lose every time. But this is just kind of the way that I choose to do my presentations. Yeah.
So how many presentations would you do in a if I had brought you in or a business brought you in, and, say an 8, I'm going to say a typical 10-hour, 12-hour day at a booth? How many?
What shows are you doing?
Well,
man, 12-hour days suck.
You tell me. Yeah. I mean, I haven't done a lot of trade shows.
No,
I'm
it's
not
all
a
right.
trade show guy.
Typical trade show is probably 7 or 8 hours a day. Sometimes I was just at one that was 10 hours a day.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say 12
but
hours.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
So typically we contract for
7, right? Or usually.
Yeah. We typically contract for 5 presentations a day during the 5 busiest hours. Yeah. So the first hour is sometimes dead, last hour is sometimes dead, middle 5, and maybe there's a lunch in there, so it works out pretty well in a 7-hour day. And then kind of rinse and repeat, right? So we make the booth busy, make it happening, and then let it go back to normal, which is always kind of a good, like, this, if you didn't have me, this would be like all the time, by the way, right? That kind of experience what that looks like. But it's also a little bit of a break for the booth neighbors, because I can get sound complaints. And if I'm going all the time, they're like, oh, like, this guy's killing us. So it's kind of nice to have that like ebb and flow through.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a couth to this, and you want to, and a respect, obviously. And
yes.
And my question is, how do the trade show and the trade show, do they give clearance on this, or are the businesses just bring you? It's like, it's on my booth. I paid for the booth. Love it or like it, kind of.
Sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's usually the only thing that sometimes is a snag is some shows don't allow sound either at all, or they don't allow it for a certain size of booth or sponsorship. So let's say a 10 by 10 or a 10 by 20, they didn't pay enough to have a sound system in their booth, is kind of what they're saying. So I've done that. Sometimes I've actually in Europe one time in Barcelona, I had to do a show with no sound system. And it was interesting because I don't try to do that. That's like hard on the voice because, you're trying to project and everything. But I found something interesting was that with a sound system, let's say I've got my crowd and Kayvon, you're like maybe 15 feet deeper and there's a bunch of space between the crowd who's actually having a good time. And you're kind of, I call these people like energy vampires. They're just going to absorb and watch from afar, but they're not going to give it back. Right. They're not going to be part of it.
I love it.
And so if I was on a microphone, you could hear me from there. And so you can enjoy the show from there. But what I found was when I wasn't using a microphone, those people, they were tempted to come in closer because they couldn't hear. And so I was like, oh, it wasn't so bad, but it's not a real,
you can still do that with the microphone with voice inflection, right? So
that's true too. But there is almost kind of like a sweet spot where to do that. So you're saving your voice, at the same time as creating that intimacy, right? And not ticking off all your booth neighbors. But typically what I'll do is I'll go to all the booth neighbors around, especially the ones that are kind of in direct line with my speaker. And then I'll say, hey, I'm going to be doing this thing over here. My job is to put a bunch of people right in this intersection. So when we're done with them, tap them on the shoulder, bring them into your booth, and they're like, oh, okay, great. So I try to frame it so that they realize that this is kind of a fun and unique thing that they're going to be around, and you can benefit from.
Everyone wins, which they probably would benefit just from a little bit more higher traffic.
So and the funniest thing is I've had complaints from these booth neighbors. They said your crowds are standing in our booth. And I'm like, well, then they're yours. Like you take them. Like
really?
You're welcome. You're welcome. But that's.
I've seen things online, just videos of I'd call them like angry trade show goers that they've been doing for 10 years and they hate themselves. They hate being there and they hate anything that's unique or that's actually bringing a positive vibe. I've seen that too many times.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can get jaded, spending good money at shows if you're, not getting the results. I can understand that, but there are other things out there you can try.
There's a science to this for sure. I'm dying to ask because I'm going to assume you've seen all the greatest shows. You've seen the smallest to the biggest, the widest to the tallest.
Sure.
I mean, all different types. Yeah. When you think about all the greatest shows you've gotten to, like what's one thing like that stands out the most, whether it was the most interesting or shocking thing you saw or unique thing you saw a company do, like what stands out?
Well, I'll tell you, let me tell you there was one moment at VMworld, I should say, one time where I was doing a presentation, but 2 booths to my right at IBM, Tony Hawk was signing skateboards and they were giving away skateboards. 2 booths behind me was the Mountain from the Game of Thrones, like the world's strongest man. And then Klay Thompson was shooting 3-pointers in a basically a half court that they constructed as a trade show booth. This was all happening all at once. And so I was kind of like, okay, anyone who's not into fantasy, skateboarding, or, basketball, you're my people. Come on, let's do, this kind of thing. So celebrity appearances are kind of a neat thing that we see. But those are kind of fleeting, right? Like that's only going to be for a short amount, and the more famous the person, the shorter amount of time that's actually going to happen. I do remember seeing like an American Ninja Warrior course in a booth one time, which is kind of memorable. So people would try to do these things, and it was a very dumbed down version because obviously those kind of athletes were not attendees at the show. So, but there was a foam pit and there was, things that you would fall into and try to do. There was a skateboard half pipe beside my booth one time. And that didn't really work that well. It sounded like a cool idea, but it wasn't as big of a draw as they thought it would be, right? Sometimes you get this wild idea. Like there's this one company called Fusion.io, and that was the company that used to, they're no longer, they got bought, but, that was the one that did the American Ninja Warrior course. They did a bicycle powered Ferris wheel one time. So you got in this thing and you like pedaled it and it would make it go around, and so people could ride this Ferris wheel that they construct, like, so wild and different. whether or not they pulled business out of that, right? Like this is that whole, you gave them an experience, you give them a reason to stop. Is there relevance? Is that connection? Is there that other piece to it? And sometimes if it's more brand building, more that new kids on the block, like we're here and you want that brand recognition, that wild stuff is good for that too, right? It depends. You got like brand marketing and then like direct response in terms of like showing ROI, right? There is some crazy sponsorships that are sold at trade shows, that you'd pay $40,000 to give away popcorn for a 2-hour reception. And there's like a dime sized logo on the bag. Yeah. It's like, I guess that's brand building, but
it doesn't work. Those are the things I think are mostly hard to track. But again, even like you said, nowadays with scan and codes and all that, becoming easier and easier.
Yeah.
So if someone's listening here and thinking, hey, I haven't done trade shows, or I've been thinking about trade shows, and we wanted to give some actual good knowledge, I would say to them, what would be like couple do's and don'ts? Like I'm talking basics. We're talking
basics.
Yeah. Just simple. Like,
yeah,
hey,
sure.
Doing a trade show. Here are the 3 things to look out for. Yeah. Here's the 3 things you must have. To have that conversation, I think it'd be great.
Yeah. Well, I think we kind of mentioned a little bit in terms of capturing attention. Typically spiking dopamine is how we do that. And if we give a gift, if there's novelty at stake, people go, oh, I want that, right? And then you create FOMO. So that's why giveaways and, raffles and things like that are always so common at trade shows, right? So definitely some sort of giveaway is a good idea, right? It's a reason why you continually see it, it goes way back and it'll continue to go way forward. Another thing I would say is invest in your people. Like trade shows are like a different world, and to really thrive in that world, you need to be operating, at that level of energy to be there all day, to show up and to really, be on your best booth staff behavior, if you will. So stay off your phone, don't eat in the booth. We always talk about, you want to avoid clustering, meaning don't get internal and having this conversation with your other booth staffers. Like, you want to face the aisle. We say butts to the booth, not asses to the aisle, right? Like, it's like, you want to make sure you're facing in case someone walks by. I did this last week. And if anyone follows me on LinkedIn, and I post a lot of these videos where I kind of do walk and talk videos. And I took a picture of 3 people who are all heads down on their phones sitting in a booth. And you're going to see this all the time. But the fact that I could get away with taking the picture and they never saw me do it, right? It's like, I could have been a perfect fit whale of a customer for them, right? And whether or not I looked at your booth or not, I walked right on by, but they'll never know, right? And so my message in that last video I made was like, don't be complaining about, the ROI you're going to get at trade shows if you're pulling that kind of crap, right? Yeah. Like, so when I say invest in your people, 49% of companies rarely or never train their booth staff. So the 51% that do train their booth staff regularly or quite often, most of them do it internally. And I've been at those internal trade show trainings. And here's what it is, Kayvon. It's an event manager taking a phone and just going, okay, don't eat in the booth. Stay off your phone. And it's just someone reading.
Yeah. It's
just reading a thing, right? So we have booth staff trainings on our website on Engagify.ai that are they're very affordable per person. And it's the idea that we don't want to give people an excuse not to train their booth staff. And the thing that we've found is it's the number one thing that companies need. It's the last thing they'll ever spend money on. And so the eye candy of the booth and the whole like, oh, we're going to do this, they pour all of their investment into that, right? And getting their people there. But they don't think about that engagement piece. And 85% of your success at a trade show is because of your booth staff.
Okay.
So there's all kinds of stats I can spout. I don't want to get into it too much, but that is, it is, no matter how much you click from place to place, it'll never replace face to face. That's, trade shows are about face to face.
And then what are like, I guess there was a little bit do's, I guess, in there and don'ts in there.
Yeah, a little bit. I just got up on my soapbox and started ranting.
No, I mean, I think it's great though. I mean, I just want to make sure people heard that. Like what I'm hearing is we need to have a giveaway, and a giveaway, it means that they're a gift. You got to create some novelty, some FOMO. That's kind of step one. That's like a step one must have. So when thinking about even going through a trade show, the question is, hey, what's the novelty? What's the FOMO? Yeah. What's the giveaway that we can create to really, at the end, which is the most important, to spike dopamine, is what you said. Number two, I'm going to call it trade booth etiquette, which is salesman etiquette, which is everyday human etiquette, but we've just lost that etiquette, which is what are the tools and what's the responsibilities and how do people show up at the booth? Again, typical things like not eating at the booth, not clustering at the booth. I love what you said. Ass is facing in, not out. Being able to bring out that energy. So it's really people etiquette. What's one more?
One more is, I talk about what is the kind of person we want to engage with. I call it creating your own engaging persona, meaning, sometimes people, especially if they're on the technical side, they might be a little quiet, this kind of thing. We need to kind of bring a different version of ourselves just to amp it up, whether that is smiling, being open, just being more personable, trying to crank up your warmth. So we talk about Kobe Bryant was the Black Mamba. Right. Yeah. We had, Sasha Fierce was Beyonce's alter ego. Right. You might have a pumped up version of yourself and just bring that to the shows, maybe when it's showtime, when the show hours kick up, kick into that extra gear, because it's a lot of people are not going to do that. And how are you going to stand out at the end of the day? Like we want to have these memorable interactions with people. So
personality, then I would say, okay, really, what's engagement? 3 is the idea of how are you going to engage? We're going to rely just on your people to engage. We're going to hire people like you to engage. We're going to use music to engage. How are we going to create the hype? And I love what you said too, is also know the people we want. So what are the people we want to attract here? And I can tell you those 3 simple things, I feel like a lot of businesses just don't even get right.
A lot of them just sit back and wait, right? And just see what they're going to do. And even, and there's another thing and I just had a call the other day with a company, like they sometimes say, well, we want quality over quantity. So we're going to scale back on this and just try to get quality. And it's like, well, the whole trade show booth is a funnel, right? Like it's like the more people you get to the booth, the more good ones you'll find, right? And so just making sure that you are filtering them and being able to find the good ones that are there. And that's why we do that we find the quality and the quantity with our call to action. But it's sometimes they feel like they're just like, I'm just going to find quality. It's like, well, how are you going to do that? Sounds like you just want to sit back and just see what comes to you
in a haystack, right? And you said what makes them want to come to you versus the 50, 60, 70 other booths. Listen, from what I'm hearing is, and I said it in between, and I want to make sure this is not a paid promotion, but from what I'm seeing and I'm understanding here, I have a business myself, and if I was ever even thinking about doing a trade show, I wouldn't be doing one without calling you first, because you, to me, seem like you are the recipe for success if you want to have an effective promotional and high conversion trade show. With that being said, where can they find you?
Yes. So I did drop it before, Engagify.ai. So it's ENGAGIFY.ai. We're not an AI company. The AI stands for authentic interactions. That's what that's about. So on that, we have a learning hub. We have past webinars we've done. We've got our trainings. We've got all kinds of tools there. Check that out. And then follow me on LinkedIn, Anders Boulanger. I'm going to spell it, sorry, Anders, and then looks like Boulanger, Boulanger. I post all kinds of videos, in the field at trade shows talking about these different tips. So.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, Kayvon.